9:30 in the morning on Tuesday, December the 27th. We'll begin the meeting of the Mill Creek Township Board of Supervisors with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda is public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Do we have any comments from the public? Being none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. Let's see, that would be our meeting from December the 6th, I believe. I don't have a copy of them here. They might be jumbled. Do I hear a motion to, are there any additions or corrections, first of all? If there being none, I will call for a motion.
I'll move we approve the minutes.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 5, approval of the bills. Of course, we have a batch of bills here that we paid. Any questions regarding that? Being none, I'll call for a motion to approve.
I'll move we pay the bills.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 6, adoption of the 2017 general fund budget. Let's see here. I think normally we would turn this over to Mark for a second. Mark, if you want to handle that.
There were few changes between the preliminary and the final budget. The biggest changes were a software maintenance agreement was missed in the original budget, so we moved, reduced the capital budget by $10,000 in the admin area, and put that expense in materials and supplies for admin for $10,680. And then we've got the final rates for the workers' comp insurance, and those expenses were distributed to the various departments based on the rates and the salaries associated with those departments. That expense ended up being just slightly higher than the original preliminary budget, but nonetheless, we're still pretty much in balance.
We've got a balanced budget with no tax increase, right?
With no tax increase.
Okay, those are the key phrases right there. Balanced budget, no tax increase.
And Mark, we also, we're still reaching our goal as far as reserves.
Yes, that is well true.
Ballpark, Mark, what was the difference? I know the one you said was $680 difference. What was
the other one was probably about $10,000 in total on a $600,000 item.
Okay.
Yeah. Just as a note there, I think for the public, we did not use or project any money from the gaming revenue that we had normally.
That is correct.
We kept that out of there, so if we do get it, it's good. It helps us out, but the recent court ruling by the Supreme Court regarding gambling proceeds going to municipalities, it's been kind of put on hold, and the legislature is trying to amend their bill on that. So we'll wait to see what happens, but hopefully we'll have a good result out of that. So, okay, any questions or comments from my fellow colleagues here regarding that?
I'll move that the township adopt the 2017 general fund budget.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 7, public hearing on subdivision and land development plans. Our first one is a sketch plan for Transportation Investment Group LP. A sketch, but well, let me just turn right over to Rick Morris. Rick, you want to talk about that?
Sure. At their meeting of December 6th, the Planning Commission recommended that no action be taken since it was a sketch plan, but one of their comments was that they should provide cross easements for all parcels to access frontage. The problem is they only have 25 feet of frontage, and the required frontage for this property is 50 feet.
Okay.
So they're in a bind.
Okay. Just for the audience out there, come on, if you would, sir, please. I'm going to ask for somebody representing Transportation Investment Group. For those in the audience and those watching this on TV, the purpose of a sketch plan, it's not an official application for an approval, any sort of action by the board. It is something to get comment from the board. It went to the Planning Commission for their comments. It comes to us for some comments, and then hopefully the developer can take these comments and advice and come up with a plan to be submitted for approval. So, yes, go, if you would identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is John Laird with David Laird Associates, 1557 West 26th Street. And I'm here this morning to represent Transportation Investment Group in regards to the proposed sketch plan in front of you for a replot of lands. First off, I guess I'd like to point out that the proposed property lines are the dark boulder lines on the plan, and the existing property lines are also shown, and those are shown by the dashed lines on the plans. So first thing I'd like to point out is that we are making a situation better here is in regards to these three parcels, and that the southeasterly corner of the three parcels, parcel 3347, 171, 3302, is currently a landlocked parcel. So it has no frontage whatsoever. So I wanted to make sure that I point that out. In addition to that comment, the parcel, as you can see, the existing buildings here, we've also pointed out some existing barriers to the property, and those are shown by the small rectangles that sit just below the 25-foot strip entering the property. So if you can see those as they run along there, it actually prohibits access currently to the building at the northwesterly corner of the parcel. So the lot layout that you see here is really not changing anything from the current usage of the property. This is how it's currently being used. The hardship with the subdivision comes about because of the two buildings on one property. So Mr. Bonacci owns, obviously, all three properties. Currently, he has a lease with FedEx Company for the middle parcel as shown here. And he also has sold his trucking company. And because of that, this building to the, again, northwest is part of that transaction. So I'd be happy to answer, well, the one other thing I'd like to point out is that there is an existing easement 50-foot wide for ingress and egress that follows the 25-foot strip and a little bit further west of it to access the properties. So that is in place currently, and I don't believe Mr. Bonacci would have any issue with issuing cross easements between all the parcels for access and ingress and egress and other issues as if the plan were to go forward. I'll let Ray Bonacci is here representing Transportation Investment Group also, and he might be able to better explain the transaction and why this is important to them.
Okay, Mr. Bonacci, do you have any comments or questions?
Raymond Bonacci, Transportation Investment Group, 3025 West 17th Street in Erie. Well, in July, we sold our trucking company, which occupies the parcel, the large trucking terminal on the left-hand side of the sketch. The new owners of the company would like to purchase the building. They're currently leasing it from us. They'd like to stay in Mill Creek and continue operations. It's a great location for them, but they want to own the real estate. And in order to facilitate that, we need to subdivide the parcel. And currently, there's 50-plus employees, and all located within this building, and they'd like to stay. And in order to do that, we just need the subdivision.
Okay. Any comments or questions from my colleagues?
How do the trucks access what would be, I guess, the southern part of the western property? Do they have to go through the building?
Which,
They come in off West 17th Street. right
yeah,
now,
there's
currently.
two entrances off of West 17th Street.
Okay.
One about a quarter of the way down, and then at the very end by the bridge that goes across to the golf course.
Are they able to get between the building and the property line there, or on the west side?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh, there's room to get a truck through there?
Yes, there's
Okay.
room to get the tractor trailers through. One at a time, they can't go side by side.
Yeah, it's a little deceiving here. It looks very narrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a functional driveway there.
Okay.
One other thing I apologize, I forgot to mention is that you'll also see a note here at the very northwestern corner of that parcel that says, this was taken from a recorded map book 23, page 81, and that there's 50 feet reserved here for the future street dedication of West 17th Street. So I just wanted to point that out, that is also reserved for future dedication, so.
One of the options that we, I don't think that this came up in the planning commission, but one of the options that we discussed with our engineering department would be to make that portion of 17th Street from Harper west to the golf course public. To do that, we would have that be the developer's responsibility. Engineering did come up with a very, very rough ballpark number. I think that there might be advantages to the property owner if that were to be a public street as opposed to having to utilize that what would be 25 feet of driveway. So that's something that you may want to check in with our engineering department just for your own curiosity to see if that's something that you may want to consider, turning that entire portion into a public street. So you would have, I don't know, what's the frontage there?
About 440 feet.
So you'd have 440 feet of frontage as opposed to 25. Something to think about.
Yeah,
That opens up many more possibilities for expansion there too, you know, should the new owner decide to do something there.
Well, and the businesses are currently utilizing that stretch of underdeveloped roadway as an access point now, are they not?
Correct. And I'm not sure how long that's been going on.
What's that?
The access here has been,
Oh, like, as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
As long as I can remember. It's been many, many, many years.
Yeah, might be a chance to open things up a little bit, because, you know, no one ever saw this sort of development going on there in that industrial area there, so. Of course, you guys have put a lot of buildings in there too, you know, to help.
Yeah, years
help
ago,
expand
it was actually back in the 80s, we kind of developed that extension of the West 17th Street. So we could access the far end of the building. We kind of flattened it out and made a roadway there.
Okay.
And we're using it since the early 80s.
Previous to that, I think that was just the driveway to the dump. The Harper dump.
Yeah, there were actually, it was kind of a dump. There were piles of dirt and
Well, it wasn't kind of a dump, it was a
It was a
dump.
dump. It's a golf course now,
Yeah.
an unused golf course.
And that would, like John said, that would bring you more or less in line with having access to a public street as opposed to kind of just utilizing the township's driveway there.
Mr. Morris, did you have any comments?
Yes, that would also help you with the FedEx property, because now you're showing 25 feet of frontage, and you could comply with the ordinance with a full 50, I believe, from what I'm seeing. So, you know, that would help you on both ends, actually, if the private driveway that is now being used would become public right-of-way.
What's your estimated timeline on this?
you know, they are right now inquiring about financing. So
Okay.
this is something they'd like to do. They'd like to own the property that they run the business
Mhm.
out of. And we say we'd like to sell the building to them and keep them here in Mill Creek.
So you're looking at trying to get back on the planning commission agenda by, what, February or March, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, we're kind of hoping that things will move along quite quickly, actually.
Okay. Well, I just think, Rick, the deadline, the earliest they could get an actual subdivision plan would be for the February planning commission.
Correct.
So is this something that we have to do, is make this road public, and what kind of cost are we?
I don't think that, at least in my opinion, we're not making that a requirement. We're raising that as
Okay.
a suggestion. I think that you should strongly consider it because it would, it's not a big benefit to the township because like you say, the road is in decent shape now.
Oh, yes.
But to bring it up to what we would accept as township specifications, it would now give you frontage of the full 400 feet. And so there would be no questions in the future. Now you have all the frontage you need for access to that property.
And you said you had a kind of a ballpark figure?
Rick, Ann compiled it, so you could access it through the
Okay.
township engineering.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay, just want to remind you, Mr. Bonacci, that this, of course, is a sketch plan, and the comments and questions that were asked were based on what was presented here. Now, you make a formal presentation, things, it may draw more questions or different questions, so I just want to, be advised of that. I think you probably knew that. I know Mr. Laird's very familiar with the sketch plan process, so. Okay, thank you for your submission there.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next one on the agenda is Unit 800, a retail expansion for the Mill Creek Mall. This is a land development plan to show a proposed 272 square foot and a proposed 26,603 square foot building addition to Unit 800 at the Mill Creek Mall, along with associated stormwater management facilities located on the west side of Peach Street. Mr. Morris.
Planning Commission recommended approval.
Okay. We have somebody representing Mill Creek Mall. If you would state your name for the record, and please write it down there too. If you would.
Rick Partika,
Okay.
Director of Architecture and Engineering for the Cafaro Company, landlord for the mall.
Okay.
As Mr. Morris stated, we're looking at a 26,000 square foot plus addition to the old former Sears building for a proposed Boscov's department store. Boscov's is a regional department store located mostly in the Northeast, 40-some stores. I think the closest one might be Pittsburgh. This would be the furthest west they've expanded. We're very fortunate we can get this department store so quick after Sears closed. So Jim's been working with Mr. Waldinger on the engineering drawings for what, the last 2 months?
Yes.
You want anything with the process on that?
If you would identify yourself, sir, for the record, and please sign
Yes,
it on the sheet there. Thank you.
My name's Jim Sherrill. I'm Senior Development Engineer for the Cafaro Company,
Okay.
the landlord. Yes, as my colleague alluded to, we began the process early November with submittal to the county of the land development plan. As you indicated, we appeared before the Planning Commission, and as Rick mentioned, they approved our plan last, I think it was the 6th. We have since submitted our civil plans and our stormwater management plan to the county and to the GPI. Rick, mostly dealing with Matt Waldinger, but anyway, you guys are in receipt of that. And outside of that, we look forward to addressing any of the township comments, finalizing the plans for approvals as required, and completing the agreements with the township prior to the recording of the final plans. So.
Okay. So just the first question or comment is that it is officially Boscov's, because we had heard that, then there was some denial in one of the media outlets that it was
It's officially
Boscov's.
Boscov's, but it's not a signed lease yet.
Okay.
But that's who we are negotiating
Okay,
with
yeah,
right now,
okay.
yes.
I just wanted to make sure I had that clear. Not that that affects anything on that there. We just we're very happy to see that the store is not going to remain vacant. It doesn't matter what goes in there, and I'm sure you guys have, the Cafaro Company, very professional who they allow to be tenants in there, so that's good. The expansion is going to be on the north side of what was the former loading dock.
Correct.
To the Sears
Yes.
store?
Yes.
That's right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a 26,000 square foot addition that's being added, two-story, like the store itself?
Just one.
Just one story?
Just one story there.
Okay.
Rick, excuse me, Rick, the stormwater, is that going to be underground detention, or?
Jim, you probably have
Yes,
better
yes, it
handle
is.
on that. Hill is reviewing it, or GPI.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an underground
Underground system?
detention, yeah, a 36-inch
Right.
pipe manifold.
And I see, from what I can determine here, the printing is small, but it looks like it says there's a proposed 4-foot sidewalk along the north side of the building.
I believe that's
Yes,
the case,
yes.
yes.
Rick, shouldn't that be 5 foot for commercial?
Yes, in commercial, we require 5 feet.
I will note that.
Yeah.
Okay. And no changes, no additional parking is necessary, from what we
No,
understand?
no.
Okay.
We're not supply any additional parking. We were actually in excess previous to that.
I figured, yep, okay. That's all my questions.
Okay. John, do you have any? Okay. I just have a quick question for you. By no means does this hold anything up or anything, but just a question about the parking. You said you had, did I hear you say you have more than enough parking?
Yes, we did, we actually lost a few spaces with this addition.
Okay, when you're still compliant with our zoning ordinance?
Yes, and that's reflected on the,
Okay.
those counts are reflected on the
Right.
development.
And of course, this might be a good place to start. And I'll just ask the question here. Would you be amenable to having some tree plantings in the parking lot, busting up some of that asphalt? You know, as you know, we're an MS4 community here in Mill Creek, and we're trying to do what we can to help get rid of stormwater issues. And paved surfaces, as we know, are always a major source of the problem. And planting some trees in there or anything, not that I'm a tree hugger or anything, but this also has a utilitarian purpose to it by having trees in there to, you know, break up the asphalt, places for it to go to. So just throwing that out there, and of course, you know, that's kind of a last minute thing, but, you know, it's not gonna be contingent on this right here, but I'm saying in the future. That mall is what, 45 years old now, I think?
Yeah, around that, yes.
Yeah, I remember I was in high school and it was being built, so it's, yeah, it would be nice if somewhere, somehow, trees could be planted in there for that utilitarian purpose, you know, shading too, you know, so.
Well, just to add to that, I know the state and I believe the county also may offer funds, grant funds, even for private enterprises to green up parking lots like that. If it's something you're interested in pursuing, you can contact Mr. Morris or Mr. Waldinger, and we'd be happy to assist you in that.
Thank you, very interested.
And the grant funding is substantial. I think it's like an 85% match, is that right, Rick? I think it's like 85-15.
It's dependent upon which one, of course, but yeah, there's a lot of help out there.
Of course, I spent a little time at the mall on Saturday. I'm one of them last-minute shoppers, and yeah, I know. But I know it's like on the west side of the mall. There, a lot of those stores have outside entrances that you don't get to them from the mall itself. That must be a new type of design for, you know, for retail malls where you don't enter through the mall itself, but.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, when we built this mall and a lot of malls, the stores were extremely deep. A lot of times, the retailers now don't like those deep stores, so we're stuck with areas in the back of the malls. So other malls, we have, you know, repurposed the back side to face the parking lot to create a different shopping experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking as you modernize the building, you know, keep up with current times, you know, plantings would be helpful there too. So just a comment, you know, just something to think about for future expansion there. So. Okay. Any other questions being none? Your motion?
Anybody from the audience?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Do we have anybody from the audience to speak on this? I'm sorry. Kind of got out of turn there. Okay, being none, call for a motion.
I'll move approval.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
Well, I would amend that with the note that Mr. McGrath made of a 5-foot sidewalk instead of a 4-foot sidewalk, so contingent on those changes. I'll second.
Okay. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, our next one is the Heritage Apartments Small Subdivision Plan. Small subdivision plan to show the creation of a 2.362 acre Lot 1 and a 17.232 acre residual parcel located at the south line of West 8th Street, east of West 10th Street, the unopened portion of it in Tract 14. Mr. Morris.
Planning Commission recommended approval.
Do you have anybody here representing this development?
Tom Reback from Raybell Surveying and Engineering, 10560 Walnut Street, out of Albion.
Okay. What can you tell us about that, sir?
I just know the Sisters of St. Joseph would like to separate the Heritage Apartments from the rest of the property.
Okay.
Splitting the building pretty much in half?
It's a party wall. They're two separate buildings.
Okay.
Right up against each other.
Okay.
Mr. Morris, were there any comments from the Planning Commission regarding setbacks? Do they need some kind of approval from this board or from the zoning hearing board for those kind of issues?
No?
And I'll make an assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, the utilities are separated in those two buildings. I'm going to make an assumption that there's a firewall between there, separating the two buildings as required under the International Building Code, but are the utilities separated too?
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Okay. Because we may have some building code issues, you know, not so much a land development standpoint, but from a building code standpoint, that these are two separate buildings. So I would most definitely get in contact, have the architect get in contact with our BIU, who's our third-party agency performing UCC inspections, get their comments on that, just to make sure that if there's something that needs to be done to comply with building codes, that way you can get an up-to-date valid certificate of occupancy for that. So that's just my comment on that. Okay. Do we have anybody in the public that would like to speak on this matter? Maybe not?
Mr. Morris, I seem to recall this issue coming up earlier in the year, and there was some talk about actually access to the property.
Correct. So they already have cross easements and so on.
Okay.
They were completed when they did Maryville.
Okay.
We have those documents signed?
I believe so, but I'm not sure. We'd have to check on that.
My recollection is that they were made perpetual. I think that was the issue.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Just a little side note, not to sound like a historian for the students out here, but at one time, this was the Villa Maria College campus, and this was their dormitory there at the time. And when did they close? Late 70s, I think it was, something like that, you know. But anyway, this is a repurposing of these buildings here, and it's a great reuse of them to be converted to those apartments. So, anyway, I call for a motion.
I'll move approval.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. Okay. Item number 8 is action on a Ridgefield School subdivision remand. Mr. Shaw.
Yes. As you know, the Commonwealth Court had reversed a decision of the Court of Common Pleas, which had affirmed a decision by the Board of Supervisors regarding a subdivision of the Ridgefield School. The Commonwealth Court, in reversing the lower courts, remanded the matter back to the Board of Supervisors with direction to amend the approval of the subdivision plan at issue, at most to a conditional approval, awaiting the township's approval of a variance or amendment to the zoning ordinance as necessary to allow Lot 1 to be used for commercial purposes. This is a follow-up to that decision. The Court of Common Pleas issued an order on October 26th of 2016 directing this board to comply with the Commonwealth's court order. So before the supervisors is a proposed supplemented decision on remand prepared by Attorney Adair, who was handling the matter and is handling the matter for the township. Essentially, it reviews the process of how we got here, and the conclusion essentially is that the board would supplement its decision by adding the following requirements: that Lot 1 be used solely for purposes authorized in the R1 single-family zoning district until and unless the township approves a rezoning of Lot 1 and/or the zoning hearing board approves the grant of a use variance, a use on special exception, or other relief authorized under the township's zoning regulations, which authorizes a different use of the property. So essentially, the remand or this decision would be consistent with the Commonwealth Court's remand order to the board.
Okay.
Not to beat a dead horse here, Mark, but isn't that the case anyway?
Yes, it would have been
Okay.
anyway, so,
So it couldn't have been used unless it was rezoned or they got a
Correct.
variance anyways.
correct.
We're putting that in writing, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Call for a motion on that.
I'll move approval of the, what would we refer to that, Mark, as the supplemental decision?
Yeah, the supplemented decision on remand,
Okay.
move approval for the written decision on that.
All right, I'll move approval.
Do I hear a second on that?
I will second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
Point of order, I guess. This is technically a subdivision or action. Do we need to take public comment on it?
This is just a remand
Just a
decision on
remand,
a
yeah.
Commonwealth Court.
Then I will vote yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes. Thank you. Item number 9, referral to the Planning Commission of a petition requesting a change in zoning classification for Jeremiah D. and Tiffany Schreiber for property located at 2501 Palermo Drive, now zoned C1 Local Commercial District, asking for a change in classification to C2 General Commercial District, Township Index 745-007.
I'll move referral to the Planning Commission.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 10, new and amended ordinances under review. We have a couple of them here that we'll be acting on here in the next month. Actually, next week, the fire code and property maintenance code amendments, bringing those codes up into current standards by the model codes that are referenced. That will be acted on January 3rd, which is next Tuesday, our reorganizational meeting. And then the Fire and EMS Commission ordinance, the action has been tabled on that until the night meeting of January 24th, 2017. So those are actions that we'll be looking at.
John, if I could add that both of those ordinances will be available on our website
Yeah.
for folks to review.
Right, yeah. I think, or they're both on there right now, aren't they?
I think so,
Am I
yes.
correct? Yes, yeah. Okay, thanks for adding that there, Mark. Okay, item number 11, Resolution 2016R24, a resolution of the Board of Supervisors fixing the Mill Creek Township tax rate for 2017. Mark?
Well, the budget was prepared using the assumption that there would be no change in the tax rate, and we have met the parameters of covering the operating expenses with the operating revenues, and maintained our policy guidelines for general fund balance at least 20%. So I would suggest that we do not raise the taxes and we leave them at the current millage, which is 3.3977 mils for the basic operating tax and a 0.156 mils for the public improvements. It's a total of 3.5537 mils,
Which is what it was last.
which it was last year.
Right, okay.
In layman's terms, that means that if you have a $100,000 house, you're paying approximately $355 a year for municipal taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what it amounts to. Okay.
All right.
Don't need any comment on that.
I'll move approval of Resolution 2016R24.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 12, Resolution 2016-R25, a resolution approving and authorizing certain financial grants with the Mill Creek Township 2017 municipal budget.
These also were included in the final budget as previously adopted. They include $2,000 for the Regional Asset Fund, $20,000 to EMTA for lift service, and $20,730 for senior citizens health care, which has essentially been handled by LifeWorks.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anybody?
And those are all the same as what was in the budget?
Yes, they are.
I think the same as what was in last year's budget.
The only one that there's a slight increase because the LifeWorks agreement calls for a
there's an escalator.
GPI
Okay.
escalator.
That's the $730.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
For a motion on that?
I'll move approval of Resolution 2016-R25.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second, but John, I'd just like to suggest to the board that before we actually release funds, we should have formal MOUs with these organizations or contracts. I know, for example, this past year, we had an issue with EMTA funds with no formal agreement with EMTA. So I think,
Something similar to what we have with the senior citizens?
yes,
Okay.
so just
Okay.
make a note of that, please, in the minutes, Cheryl, that we should have those kind of agreements in place, all three organizations.
For 2018's budget.
Well, I'm saying before we release funds in 2017.
Oh, okay, better yet. All right.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 13 is the adoption of the 2017 sewer revenue budget, fund budget. Mark, I'll turn it back over to you again.
Okay. The sewer revenue fund is a portion of overall Mill Creek Township budget, but it operates as its own separate fund. They do their own budget, and they prepare scenarios in their various rate proposals. The budget that's being put forward is with no increase over the current $84 a quarter. It covers the operating expenses as well as debt service as required by various bond indentures. So they meet their expenses without the township itself having to, make good on its guarantee of the bonds. So I would recommend that we approve their budget based on the $84 rate.
Okay. Any questions?
I just want to make sure it's clear, so we're not raising sewer rates.
That is absolutely correct.
All right.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, do I hear a motion on that?
I will move adoption of the 2017 sewer revenue budget.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 14, Resolution 2016 R26, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015 R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve the proposed disposition of certain township records. I'll turn that over to you again, Mark.
Okay. These are payroll and accounts payable records that are eligible for disposal. Essentially, most every financial record's got to be held at least 7 years. Many of these records are at least that old, if not older. And the unfortunate thing is that we sort of put the cart before the horse in this particular instance. And the records have been destroyed, but they were certainly eligible. We will have a formal procedure in place and have training provided so that in the future, the steps will be taken in the proper order.
Okay.
Some of these records were, what, 15, 16 years old?
Yes.
Okay.
They were certainly eligible for disposal. They should have probably been gotten rid of a while ago. But still, we need to follow our policy.
Right. The way we're consistent. Okay. Okay, do I hear a motion on that?
I'll move approval.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Let's see here. Item number 15, Resolution 2016 R27, a resolution to approve the independent auditor's report of the Erie Area Council of Governments for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll turn it over to you, Brian, since you're our COG representative.
The board was given a copy of the auditor's report and letters that go along with it, and everything was fine as far as the audit goes for the Erie Area Council of Governments. Annually, we are required by the COG to, for member governments, to approve a resolution that also adopts the auditor's report. So that's what this resolution is, and I will move approval of Resolution 2016 R27.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
Mr. McGrath, are there any issues with the report that you're aware of?
None.
Okay. I'll second.
Despite the fact that, sorry to interrupt, but despite the fact that we changed administrators mid-year, the auditor found that other than just the new administrator doing significantly more of the bookkeeping via computer, everything was in line from the previous handwritten ledgers.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that then?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay, item number 16, notice of proposed resolution to amend the supervisor's titles. This action will be taken on January 3rd at the reorganizational meeting. Brian or John, you guys have comments or something you want to say about that?
For the information of those watching or here in the assembly room, the Board of Supervisors has discussed, I don't know, for a few weeks now, the possibility of changing or I guess amending the titles given to the township supervisors at our annual reorganization meeting. For the past forever, township supervisors, the three-member board has typically been 2 roadmasters and a township secretary. The second-class township code does not require that. That's just more or less been the standard operating procedure for townships, well, probably for 200 years. It was the feeling of the board that we should maybe look at a way to refer to the township supervisors in their employed capacities differently than roadmaster and township secretary. And the second-class township code does allow for that. It also allows, by amending the reference to our job titles, it also allows for performance expectations of the supervisors. It actually lists the responsibilities of those employed positions, and it also addresses what has happened, not frequently, but several times over the past 20 or 25 years or so, where former supervisors have applied for unemployment compensation. It does not eliminate, we've learned that it does not eliminate that possibility from happening, but it would make the possibility of the granting of unemployment compensation for a former supervisor a little bit more difficult. As part of the job description, it lists that the employed position would have to be an elected township supervisor. So if you were no longer elected, if you lost an election or retired, you would not be eligible for that job classification or would not fit that job classification and therefore would not be eligible for unemployment compensation, at least make it a little bit more difficult to receive. So it's the idea here is kind of twofold: setting qualifications, giving the employed positions actual parameters, and making one of the requirements for that job that you be an elected township supervisor. So hopefully we've covered everything, and that job description has gone on to the township auditors. They've received a copy of it, and with a letter explaining the rationale. So they meet, I think it's on the 4th, is that right? January 4th. And if they have any questions, I'm sure that we'll learn about them at that time.
Okay, John, do you have any comments?
Oh, well, I just wanted to clarify for the public's benefit. I know at the beginning of the year, we had issues with a former supervisor applying for unemployment. There was a little bit of confusion as far as kind of the employment status of township supervisors. Unlike most elected positions like state representative or at the mayor's office or county executive, the elected responsibilities and the job duties that can be paid for are all one and the same within their charters. For second-class townships, the elected responsibilities and then the actual job that you can be compensated for are two separate issues. So what we're trying to do, as Mr. McGrath said, is actually put down in writing exactly what that pay position entails so the public can hold us accountable for it. So everyone knows what we're supposed to be doing, and we can hold each other accountable and have that documented. So it's really about transparency and being accountable to the public, and also modernizing our system of government here, in that the old days of roadmasters, we have an engineer, Mr. Morris, we've got a public works director, so we thought modernizing those titles to more accurately reflect exactly what it is supervisors do on a day-to-day basis made sense.
And that'll be acted on next meeting, January 3rd.
Okay, I just have a quick comment on this. I support the idea of this. We'll be talking more about it next week at a reorganizational meeting. However, I just want to remind the public, and especially those in the audience here that are in the meeting room here, we are still going to be elected supervisors. That's how we get into the office as supervisor. That's the office. However, our duties and positions here are varied. We also appoint ourselves to the jobs that we hold. So at the January 3rd meeting of the reorganizational meeting of the supervisors, we appoint each other to the duties and jobs that we will hold as administrators. This is something that's been done all the time. The titles are what is being changed. To me, I don't get hung up on titles. You can call me the administrator of public safety. You can call me whatever. The thing is, I'm elected by the public as a supervisor to do many things, and it's more than what the job description has to say. I know that going into the job, because I don't get real hung up on titles and stuff like that. It's just my view on it. So, but we'll be talking more about it next week there. Okay. But I support the idea. So, anyway, we'll be talking about that next week. Item number 17, financial security reduction request for Whispering Woods Estates Phase 7A. Special Properties, Inc. is the developer. Mr. Morris.
Financial security in the amount of $53,063.34 is held by Northwest Bank, number 8305004023. The developer requested a reduction to $20,824.32. However, that would drop us below the 10% of the original, and that is typically our minimum. So we're recommending a reduction of $23,638.34 to the 10% of original, $29,425. Items remaining to be completed include berms, swales, sidewalks, and survey monuments.
Okay. Any questions?
So your recommendation, excuse me, Rick, is to reduce the security to $29,425?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move approval.
Okay. Do I hear a second on that?
Mr. Morris, was the developer contacted, made aware that the request is being modified?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I also vote yes. Item number 18, is that, Rick, do you?
We have no information on this. We were expecting a letter.
Okay.
Since we didn't receive it, we're requesting that it be tabled until January 3rd.
I'm sorry, I got a little out of my turn here. The item 18 is the financial security release request for the Abiding Hope Lutheran Church. And that, we're going to table that until our next meeting. We still have time. We're within our time limit?
Yes, we have until January 5th. So the January 3rd meeting provides enough time.
Is that okay? I hear a motion to table this action. I need to hear that. So.
I'll move to table item 18.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you. Item number 19 is the November building construction report. Thank you. I left this upstairs. This comes from Julie Maggio, the Assistant Zoning Administrator. Of course, it's slow time of year. In the residential end, we had 3 new single-family dwellings at a construction value of $730,000. And then an addition onto another one for a total of $739,000 of construction value. In the commercial end, that's rather light too. It's only $202,000 of construction value for a total of $941,000 of construction value for the month of November. That's typical this time of year. The zoning permit fees generated from all of that was $3,950. Paper copies of this are available upstairs in the zoning department, and I think they're online here, or they will be later this week. Okay, item 20, communications. Mark, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, Brian?
Couple quick things. First, notification from Jessica James Stutzman in regard to our Tree Vitalized grant. We were awarded the DCNR grant in the amount of $7,630 to plant 50 trees in the following locations: at McDowell High School, along 38th Street, in their parking lot at Asbury Park, both by the barn and the ball fields, at the MYAA David Long Sports Complex, at the Erie County Conservation District, Richmond Park on Richmond Road and Peninsula Drive Boulevards, and at the Chadwick Road median. So that's nice to hear that we'll be planting 50 trees this coming spring. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think it may actually be in the fall when they plant those.
Mr. McGrath, I just noticed that two of those items, the 30th Street right-of-way and the Peninsula Drive Boulevards, are actually in state right-of-way. Have we gotten PennDOT approval to plant those trees?
We do,
Okay.
yes. The next notification, also from Jessica, is in regard to the annual Christmas tree recycling. And this year it will be held on Saturday, January 14th from 9 a.m. until noon at the Millfair Compost and Recycling Center on Millfair Road. And just as a reminder that this year's collection will be open to all municipalities and businesses within Erie County. That's a great way to help the Emmaus Soup Kitchen. There's no fee involved, but donations are gratefully accepted, and the charity for those funds that are collected will be the Emmaus Soup Kitchen. Okay. And that's all I have.
Okay, good. Okay, I have one here from the Mill Creek Police Department from Director Michael Tesor. Dear sir, I respectfully request the Township Board of Supervisors approve the following at the public meeting of December 27th. One, the trade of one deadlined MPD patrol vehicle to the Mercyhurst University Northeast Municipal Police Academy in exchange for equal value and mandatory 2017 Act 180 training for the Mill Creek Township police officers. This training for 63 officers in 2017 normally cost the township $3,780. Once the selected value has been valued, and any needed adjustments to the training credit will be made. So I want to put that with a proviso on that. That's what the chief is asking for, if that would be an amenable plan for us. I'll make that motion to approve that with those conditions.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we need public comment?
Well,
That was
actually,
on the agenda.
it's on the agenda.
It's on the
Never mind.
agenda
I'm
there.
sorry.
Gentlemen, can we have some discussion before we vote on this?
Okay.
I'm a little concerned in that we've tried, and we've discussed it during budget discussions, of repurposing these patrol vehicles for our own uses for other township departments. This is the first I've heard of us actually trading a vehicle to an institution. I'm a little concerned about the idea of trading in that way. Rather, are we not required to actually, if we're going to dismiss a piece of property like this, to actually go out for bids if it's valued at more than $2,000?
We can refer this one to the solicitor, but this is, I think that this has been researched in the past.
It's an in-kind
and
service, I think.
We've done this
I think.
multiple times.
I think as Mercyhurst as a nonprofit, I think factors into the ability to do it without the bidding process.
Well, and also
We can
that is
certainly look
actually,
into it.
well, and I don't think it's really appropriate for us to approve something like this when we don't know what vehicle is going to be selected, we don't know the value of that vehicle. I think it shouldn't be too difficult for the chief to actually figure that out before we give him approval for this.
I think what he's asking here is to enter into such a plan. I'm going to make the wild assumption, and I know what happens when I assume, that this, if the thing didn't work out, if the numbers didn't match up, then the deal would fail. It's like going to buying a car. If the deal doesn't work, you walk out of the showroom. And I'm thinking that's what happens on this, if it doesn't work out, the right numbers or anything, so.
Well,
But if you want.
from what I understand, from what I'm reading here, if the vehicle is worth more than the $3,780, we would just receive credit for additional training.
Yeah.
If it's worth less, then we would have to make up the difference.
Right. Yeah, the vehicle would be used for police training out there at their academy. And our own officers are part of it. They have to get annual recertification under 180. And so this would just help, with an in-kind trade, trading one for the other.
If you want to hold off, John, until we get more information, I know this just came from the chief the other day, but if you want to hold off, we can.
I'm not trying to make a big issue of it, gentlemen. We had about 4 different departments request vehicles in the capital budget this past year. I'd just like to
And we've
make sure
kind
we
of
do.
promised several of them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think 6 vehicles are coming out of service.
Okay.
I believe that's what it is. We're buying 4, but we're taking 6 out. So, okay.
You want to hold off a week?
Well, I'd appreciate if we could table and get some more
Okay,
details
I'll
from.
withdraw my motion to approve that. Ryan, you
Right, we'll
okay?
just- yeah.
Yeah, we'll just,
Hold on.
we'll table that until next week under communications.
I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Okay, and something else here, just a comment. We had our Christmas giving tree, and first of all, I'd like to thank Ashley Marsteller and Londa Cirillo from up in the Parks Department who handled all of that. Did an excellent job, as we always have done here at the township with the giving tree. However, we had a little situation here where 5 of the names were taken off of the tree by, who knows, maybe one person, several people, or whatever the case was. And sadly, on the 16th of December, which was the deadline, was a Friday, we did not receive any gifts for those children that their names are on the tree. This does have a good ending to it. I just want to let you know that we're saddened that something like that happened. Maybe somebody, forgot about it. We had hoped that, maybe by Monday something would happen. It didn't happen. So anyway, I think we'll be revisiting the policy on how the names will be distributed next year. Anyway, to make a long story short, I did make a call to Santa Claus, and Santa Claus, known as McDonald, Illig, Jones, and Britton Law Firm, through Mark Shaw, and asked if they could help out, and they were more than generous to help out. So we did have a successful tree this year, thanks to the efforts and the contributions by MIJV in making sure that this happens. And as I said, I think next year we'll sit down and talk about this, how the names are distributed. I think this is the first time this has ever happened where about 5 names. That's kind of sad. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. It's a good ending to it there, and my big thanks to you, Mark, and the folks down at MIJB for what they've done with us there.
It was our pleasure to be able to help out.
Okay.
And thanks to, I think it was Ashley went out and did the shopping?
Yeah, Ashley and Jessica went out on Saturday and did the shopping with a promissory note from MIJB. One other thing I did want to mention, that we did have executive sessions with our solicitor on the 15th of December and the 22nd of December to discuss some legal matters that we're involved with. And of course, the executive sessions, we just have to announce that we had the meetings and the purpose of them. So that's that, and I'll turn it over to John. You have anything?
I just want to report at the last meeting, we authorized the Planning Commission to solicit proposals for the Municipal Comprehensive Plan, the Embrace Mill Creek Plan, as we've been calling it. I believe the second week of January is the deadline for those proposals, and Matt Waldinger from Engineering Department reports that we've already gotten over a dozen firms that expressed interest in submitting proposals. So I'm confident we're going to have some very qualified firms come in, and it's going to be a tough decision in a good way for us to select who's going to help us out with this plan.
Okay, thank you. Sydney, do you have anything for us? We'll get the microphone over to you, somebody will.
Okay. Just a quick update from McDowell. I think everyone is happy to be on break right now. I think everyone in the audience here can agree. When we return to school, I know everyone will be having finals as the end of the semester will be coming shortly, so that'll be a busy time for everyone at McDowell. Right now, our winter sports teams are all in full swing, so there's games going on every night. We'd like to have people come out and support those teams, and I know a lot of our clubs are doing exciting things as well, so it's basically what's going on with McDowell right now.
Okay. How about your meeting with the governor? You want to talk about that? Say you met with the governor?
Yeah. We all went and met with the governor. It was with all of the different governments from Erie County. It was interesting to talk to him and see where we can get this help from the state on different projects going on. But it was really nice. It was a really good collaborative experience, and it was good to meet the governor.
Yeah, sure it was.
Mr. Gross says you gave us a pretty good plug for the 8th Street Marketplace project.
Yep.
So thanks
She
for
did a
helping out.
very good plug on that there, yes. Okay, thank you, Sydney.
Be our municipal lobbyist when you graduate.
Okay, Mark Shaw. you have-
Yes, I actually have two things that had not made it on the agenda. First is a contract amendment to the agreement between the township and builders inspection underwriters. This is the contract that they, where they assist with the building inspections, enforcement of the property maintenance code and the fire code. We had proposed to amend that contract to extend it by 1 year. In addition, we went through and made some additional changes to the scope of services to make them consistent with current practices and our current staffing with respect to the fire code. BIU did agree to the amendment and have sent over a signed copy. Unfortunately, they signed the version that still said draft on it, so I'll have to get them to re-sign it. But I would ask or recommend that the supervisors approve this amendment, and we can then get this signed and moved on for the next year.
Okay.
Mr. Shaw, the extension keeps the compensation the same?
Yes, the fee is the same as it was under the prior 3-year contract.
Okay, do I hear a motion on that?
I'll move approval.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
I'll second.
And I think because it wasn't on the agenda, we should ask
Yeah,
any
we'll need
public
for
comment.
public comment. Any public comment on this item here before the board? Okay, being none. Mr. McGrath, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, and I'm going to vote no on that. Okay,
And the second item I had, John, I'm sorry, was there is another ordinance that the Board of Supervisors is going to consider at the next meeting with respect to sidewalks. It's under the Public Improvements PPIC code. Section 2943, which is pedestrian circulation. We're updating that provision to ensure that it's compliant with the ADA standards. That ordinance also, I believe, is on the website, available for people to view the proposed changes.
okay,
That's all I have there.
okay, thank you. Cheryl, do you have anything? Okay, Rick Morris, anything there? Okay, before I go to citizens to be heard, any students that came in after the meeting started and need their papers signed, please come forward after the meeting is done. Okay, move on to citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Okay, being none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:32.
So moved.
Okay, we are out of here. Thank you.
You're watching the Mill Creek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.